like you to do your introductory comments?
I would, but I just want to make sure everybody can hear. The 4 people who are scheduled for hearings today, I just want to make sure they can hear.
Could everyone put your hand up if you can hear the Mr. Hearings Officer at the moment? Okay, we have 4 hands up, so it seems
Okay,
to
perfect. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Theodore Nemetz. I am the hearings officer for the town of Oakville. To let you know, I am not an employee of the town. I am an independent contractor. My role today is to determine whether or not the offense has been made out. There will be a couple of ways that this will take place. Either you may admit the offense, or you may admit the facts, or and then ask questions or make your own submissions. I have limited authority. I do have the ability to determine whether or not the offense in fact took place. The procedure is that I will begin with the prosecutor. Despite what it says on the video, his name is Bowman. And Mr. Bowman will call each of these matters in the order that he chooses. And what will happen is each of you has had the opportunity to speak with him or someone from his office previously with regard to resolution. If you still want to speak with him, let him know now, and we will hold the matter down so you can speak with him privately to see if you can come to any agreement. As I said, my authority is limited. I can find that the offense did not take place. I can confirm the offense. I can reduce the penalty if there is evidence of hardship. And that's the way it goes. In terms of procedure, Mr. Bowman will go first. He will call whatever evidence he feels is necessary. He will be introducing documents which have been shared with you, including things like photographs, plate inquiries that are held by the Ministry of Transportation, and things of that nature. And then you will have the opportunity to then ask questions of anyone that gives evidence. Please understand that when you are asking questions of a witness, it's an opportunity to ask questions, not make statements. Give evidence. Argue. It's simply ask questions. You will then have the opportunity to give evidence if you so choose. You will be asked to swear on the Bible or affirm, as you're given your choice. And you will then have the opportunity to say what you wish. At the end of all of the evidence, I will ask each of the parties to briefly, and I mean briefly, summarize your position, and then I will give a decision. Okay, there you go. Mr. Bowman? You are Mr. Bowman now.
Yes, Mr. Hearings Officer, I can advise that I have had conversations with the matter that I'm about to call, which is on the docket. It will show Mohammed Shahid, but
Yes.
the registered owner of the vehicle is Logic Flash Consulting Incorporated. Madam Clerk, if we could promote that individual, please.
Apologies, yep. The individual has been promoted and should be rejoining as a panelist.
And it would appear that we have Shahid Rao present.
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Okay, would you be so kind? Oh, you unmuted, yes, thank you.
Is there a display? It's okay if it's just audio, as long as you can hear. There we go.
Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Hearings Officer, I can advise that I've spoken with the defense prior to the hearing today, and this is an anticipated plea with an explanation and submissions on financial considerations.
Okay. So, Mr. Bowman, go ahead.
Well, does the defense wish to make that plea or indication confirm that? It's your understanding?
Mr. Shahid, you're on mute. You are on, please unmute yourself. Thank you. Do you agree with what Mr. Bowman has just said?
That's right.
Okay.
What? Mhm.
Okay.
So I can advise Mr. Hearings Officer, just to assist the defense, the ticket arises from a scenario where work was being done at the defense's parking facility. I believe it's an underground garage that was being worked on. And the condo management or the property management worked with the town for a multiple vehicle permit for the displaced motor vehicles from the parking garage. And one of the conditions of that permit was that no one would be situated, or no vehicle would be situated in the dead end or circle area adjacent to the complex. And due to a misunderstanding of that permit by the defendant's daughter, the vehicle was situated there. And those are substantially it's my understanding that that is the scenario, and that is in addition to the photographic evidence taken by the investigating officer of the vehicle parked essentially in that area with the posted no stopping signs.
Okay, my problem is I do not see, oh, I didn't go up high enough. Okay.
So in addition, just to assist, the original penalty is, notice is for $60. There is an additional $12 MTO search fee that is in accordance with the fact that the ticket lapsed in terms of action being taken. And so a search was done to confirm the registered owner. And then in addition to that, enough time elapsed for there to be a late payment fee as well. So currently, the total penalty and fees sits at $90. And I understand that the defense may have some submissions regarding financial considerations.
Please go ahead, Mr. Shahid.
Thank you. First of all, regarding the parking, that day, because underground parking was, there was some repair work was being done, and we have to park outside. And all residents of this building, they have parked outside, and there was no spot. And car is we cannot bring inside the apartment. We have to park somewhere, and that dead end. Where the circle is, it is not a through traffic, through straight. It's the next building is our building where we live, and it's one unusual circumstances. That's where my daughter parked, and all the residents that night, that window, were aware of that. It was an unusual circumstance, and everyone parked the car outside. So it was not danger or anything, or it was not a kind of a permanent feature. We were parking over there. It was just for one night event, and this was the reason behind that. Regarding the delay, at that time I was out of country. We all actually family were out of country. We when we got back, I called the city and give them the evidence that this was a repair was done, and this was the reason this happened. But because of it was late, and this we are here where we are right now. Okay, so regarding the financial circumstances, I was just thinking that it was I paying rent, I paying underground parking every month, and then one day just outside we parked, which is the street ends on our building. It was unusual circumstance, and what was big deal in that case? There was no danger to public. This is not through traffic, through light, and city is sending me the notice and all that stuff time over and over. I'm behind my, literally behind my bills paying this month and previous month also. And on top of that, it's $60 or $90. Not a big deal in terms of our city, but it's a big deal for me. So this is the comments I want to make. Why it was parked there, and what is the reason we are here today.
And what are you proposing? What are you suggesting the fine should be?
I suggest if you just let me go, forgive me this, that would be great.
Mr. Bowman?
There is an understanding that there has been at least one, if not two, resolution discussions regarding this matter. And although the defense is cooperating under the circumstances in terms of dealing with the matter by way of upholding the penalty notice, I would suggest I'd be content to see the additional fees waived, but the penalty notice at $60, I think that's a reasonable outcome under the circumstances. I haven't heard a lot in terms of financial considerations pertaining to hardship. I've heard a lot about the unique circumstances by which the car was parked.
Well, there was a little bit about behind on bills this month and last month, so, but.
I'll leave it with the hearings officer.
Okay, thank you. May I ask you, Mr. Shahid, you said when this happened, you were out of town.
That's right. Yeah, my daughter was here, and she parked that night.
Your daughter that parked the car. Okay.
Yes. But she goes to school, and she was here. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just wondering, how did the car get outside? And
No, my daughter. It was actually my daughter was driving. Yeah.
okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce it to 40 with 60 days to pay.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome. Okay, so that'll be done. Okay, very good. You will get notice by mail or email, and you'll deal with it with them.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Shahid.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Madam Clerk, if you could
So you're free to leave.
excuse. All right, the next matter is the third matter, Anton Siolak.
That individual has been promoted and should appear shortly.
Okay. Chiolak? Something very strange happened there, but here we are. You are Mr. Chiolak?
Good afternoon, Mr. Hearing Officer. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can.
Okay.
Okay. And your name is?
Anton Alexandru Ciolak.
Okay, Ciolak.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. Just let me pull that up right now. Hang on. On you.
Madam Clerk, is Mr. Chilak on audio only?
Yes, Mr. Bowman, he is.
Okay.
I could go on camera. Just 1 second. Okay, I think yes.
Very good.
Very good, thank you. Okay. Mr. Cholak, thank you. And
I would suggest, Mr. Hearings Officer, that this is a full hearing.
okay,
Subject to any
okay, you're going to have to give me a second because I inadvertently closed up my file. Okay, ready to go.
Mr. Chilak, that's your understanding, is that correct? We're having a hearing today?
That is correct, Mr. Bowman.
Okay. All right, so, Mr. Hearings Officer, as already disclosed, I'd like to enter as Exhibit 1 a copy of the relevant portions of the parking bylaw as it pertains to Stone Glen Crescent.
Mr.
Okay.
Bowman, I would like to interrupt you for a second. I would like at this time to introduce a motion for dismissal. I'm not confident that this is correct procedurally because I'm not familiar with how this administrative penalty tribunal works. But it would be my intention at this time to introduce the motion.
Well, we don't do motions, so
Okay, so then I will not.
Mr. Hearings Officer, just to assist, and my intention, Mr. Chilowak, is to only assist, okay? So if you wish to correct me, feel free to do so. But I think the defense is attempting a motion to dismiss based on the time period during the pandemic between the time that the ticket was issued and the hearing for today. While it is a protracted time, as everyone on the panel knows, there was quite a backlog during the pandemic due to the shutdown of operations at the town. And in addition to that, in terms of scheduling for hearings, this is an administrative penalty process. It is not a Provincial Offences Act certificate of offense. There is no binding jurisprudence suggesting that the delay is somehow unreasonable or prejudicial regarding the penalty notice. And in addition to that, speaking from experience in the Ontario Court of Justice, this particular delay is during the pandemic and would not be considered prejudicial under those circumstances that I articulated. So hopefully that helps.
well, I don't, because Mr. Cholak should have gone first and tell me why he wants this matter dismissed.
I want this matter dismissed, Mr. Hearing Officer, because of the delay, indeed. So as Mr. Bowman already stated, it was prejudicial to me, indeed, all this delay. Also, the matter being brought to a hearing during the pandemic time, I understand that there were some hardship to work through this this period. However, this is the hearing is online, so it shouldn't be impacted by that much. But you know, I'm not the one. That's just my consideration about this delay.
Okay, well, Cholak, I'm not going to dismiss it for delay. The Jordan framework for convening of hearings does not apply in an administrative proceedings. And despite Mr. Bowman's submissions that there is no jurisprudence on that, there in fact is. Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that the timeframes established by the court in Jordan with regard to timeliness of hearings do not apply to administrative hearings. And for the life of me, I do not remember the name of the case, but it arises out of Manitoba. Okay? So there you go. Carry on, Mr. Bowman.
If we could call the first witness, please. Officer Lalonde.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, Mr. Hearings Officer, the relevant sections of the bylaw are tendered as Exhibit 1.
Yes. And the plate inquiry and the notices. Well, the notice you don't need, but the plate inquiry,
I'll get to that if you don't mind, Mr. Hearings Officer.
that's fine. And Officer Lalonde, could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Shannon Lalonde, Lalonde.
You wish to swear or affirm?
Swear.
You have a Bible there?
No?
Oh. Typically we do, but not today. Perhaps you could
You
affirm.
solemnly swear? Okay. You solemnly swear that the answers you give to the questions asked will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And it's your right hand you put up.
I do.
Thank you. And Shannon Lalonde, thank you. And you are a bylaw officer with the town of Oakville?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Officer, how long have you been a bylaw officer with the town of Oakville?
Almost 7 years.
Okay. And were you involved in the investigation of the matter today?
Yes, I was.
And do you have notes regarding that matter?
Yes, I do.
And how were those notes created?
Sorry?
How were those notes created?
By myself shortly after the investigation.
Okay. And have there been any additions, deletions, or alterations to your notes?
No, there has not been.
Okay. Subject to any questions that the hearings officer may have or the defense, I'd ask that the officer be permitted to refer to her notes to refresh her memory and her independent recollection.
Mr. Cholock, do you have any objections to the officer referring to her notes?
I don't.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
Officer, keeping in mind that people are taking notes, if you could tell us what happened in terms of your investigation slowly.
I was working a night shift on Saturday, June 12th, 2021. So I started at 7 p.m. and worked until 6 a.m. on the Sunday. So at approximately 12:08 a.m., I attended Stone Glen Crescent in the town of Oakville. I chalked a couple of vehicles on the street, including the vehicle we are going to talk about today.
Officer, if you could just slow down and speak a little bit slower and clearer.
Sure,
please.
sorry. So I chalked the complaint vehicle, which was marker GVAJ600, Ontario marker. It was an Audi. At that time, I chalked the rear tire on the driver's side in the 12 o'clock position. I then continued on with the rest of my night. At approximately 4 a.m., I returned to Stone Glen Crescent. At that time, I issued penalty notice 21U00594 on June 13th, 2021 at 4:02 a.m. It was issued to plate GVAJ600, Ontario marker. It was an Audi. The violation was for park longer than 3 hours where prohibited, contrary to Oakville Bylaw 1984-1, Part 3, Section 5, subsection 4A, on Stone Glen Crescent within the town of Oakville.
Officer, you indicated that you initially chalked the vehicle. At what time did you chalk that vehicle?
At 12:08 a.m.
And officer, during the course of your investigation, did you take any photographic evidence?
Yes, I did.
I would draw everyone's attention to the photographs that were disclosed and that are in the package for consideration. I'm going to provide the officer with those documents if she doesn't. Do you have the photos already?
Yes, I do.
Okay. For everyone, just wanted to take a moment to access those photos.
Mm-hmm.
And officer, who took these photos?
I did.
Okay. And what time were those photos taken?
They were taken at the time the penalty notice was issued, which was 4:02 a.m.
Okay. And officer, I draw your attention to, just going to hold it up, this particular photo. Can you describe this or elaborate that particular photo?
So that is the rear driver's side tire that I chalked at 12:08 a.m. on the subject vehicle in the 12 o'clock position on the tread of the tire.
Okay, and officer, it's your testimony that this particular photograph was taken at 4:02, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what are your observations regarding the chalk mark?
So when I returned, the chalk mark was still in the same position as when I chalked it. It was still on there clearly, which meant that the vehicle had not moved.
Okay. And officer, can you account why there aren't photos at 12:08 when you started your investigation?
So that was at the start of my investigation. We typically don't take any photos as the investigation is still undergoing.
Okay. And as a result of your investigation, did you conduct a search regarding the ownership of the plate?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what were the results of that?
That one of the registered owners was Anton Alexandru Chiolak.
At this time, Mr. Hearings Officer, I'd like to tender as an exhibit the MTO plate inquiry that has been disclosed and that indicates the ownership of the vehicle.
Yes, give it to.
And Mr. Hearings Officer, I'd also like to collectively tender as Exhibit 3 the photographs that were addressed by the officer.
The 3 photographs, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And officer, just to confirm, based on the investigation, what was your conclusion regarding the Audi?
That the vehicle was parked longer than 3 hours.
Okay. And officer, what brought you to Stone Glen Crescent that particular night?
So that street is within the vicinity of the Oakville Trafalgar Hospital. We receive an influx of complaints from neighboring residents to the hospital, as they often have vehicles that are parking there, in addition to all like the ones that live on the street, because of the hospital being close by.
And so is this a reactive or proactive type of enforcement?
It would be reactive.
Okay.
Sorry, proactive.
Okay. Which is it?
It's proactive. We
Okay.
do it proactively because of the influx of complaints that we receive.
Okay. Subject to any questions that the hearings officer or that the defense may have, those are the questions I have for the witness at this time.
Mr. Cholak, this is your opportunity to ask questions of Officer Lalonde, not make statements, as I said before, anything like that. Just ask questions if you have any questions of her.
I understand, Mr. Hearing Officer. I would have a few questions for the officer. One thing that I need to understand is in the disclosure that was submitted, your name associated with your business card is Shannon Whittaker. Is this Whittaker your name, or is the other one that you've been referred to by Mr. Bowman?
So Whitaker is my maiden name. Lalonde is my married name, which just got changed recently.
Oh, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the questions that I have for you would be, you said that this was reactive, the way you, or proactive. I'm still not clear what it was. Can you state again how did you enforce that area, for what reasons?
Yes, sorry about the confusion. It was a proactive enforcement in the area.
Proactive meaning that you attended that area that night because you knew that the residents of that area, they had complaints in the past. Is that the correct understanding for proactive?
We do receive quite a few complaints, yes.
So how often you are attending that area for your duties? Every night, once a month, once a year?
I don't have that information.
But what would be safe to assume if you don't have that information? What would be your assumption?
I'm not going to assume without having that knowledge.
You don't have that knowledge. Also, you are doing your duties on a daily basis and you cannot tell us how often you are actually attending your duties in that area.
There's many streets in Oakville. We have our job is to enforce several of the streets. I can't speak to how many times or how often officers or myself attend that street in particular.
I did not ask you for any particular other officers. I asked you about your duties. If you conduct your duties in that area and how often?
I can't speak to that.
Mr. Hearing Officer, could you please
If
ask
she
the
can't,
witness?
if she doesn't know, she doesn't know. What would you like me to do?
But it's her duty, Mr.
What,
Hearing
how
Officer,
many
to know
times
that.
she's been on that street? No, it's not.
Not how many times, but like to have an estimate of how many times she goes there.
An estimate doesn't answer the question. She says she doesn't know.
Okay. In that case, I don't have any more questions for this witness.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearing Officer.
Thank you. I have no questions for you, Officer Lalonde. Thank you.
No redirect. If the officer could be excused.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Forgot to do that. Mr. Cholak, this is your opportunity, if you wish, to give any evidence you might wish to give.
Mr. Hearing Officer, the only thing I can say about this parking ticket is the following. I'm a very good citizen in my city, and I'm very upset that I received this parking ticket. And I received it for a very, very obscure motive, I would say. And this is one of the prejudices I mentioned in my motion, that I cannot even remember why I went to the hospital that night. I had so many times that I had to go to the hospital. I was not expecting to stay for more than 3 hours at a time in the emergency room, because otherwise I would have probably moved my car, but I was in so bad shape at that time. There were a few things that happened at that time in my life, which were health related. I see this type of parsing enforcement as selective parsing enforcement, because that area it's always being more enforced than other areas. I've never seen anybody being ticketed on my street during the nighttime, even if they leave their car there for more than 3 hours. And Mr. Bowman explained to me with one occasion that it could be that those neighbors, they actually called the parking enforcement and they explained that they will have visitors overnight. So I'm not sure if that's true, because we had also visitors. My son had some colleagues were visiting him one time never got a ticket in our area. I'm also, concerned that the citizens in that area of where I received the ticket, they have a better parsing environment than the ones in my area. They also can go to the hospital without receiving a parking ticket because on their street they can leave their car in their garage. They also can come and park on my street. They will never receive a parking ticket. So somehow, as taxpayer, I have less rights than the people in that area. And that is my opinion. I don't have to generalize that. But I'm a little bit concerned about this type of ticketing and the procedures that they are taking place for the parking enforcement in Oakville. And I think that would conclude everything I had to say in my defense.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman, did you wish to ask any questions of Mr. Cholak?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Mr. Cholak, you indicate that you don't remember why, but you do recall that you attended the emergency room at the hospital. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And are you aware that there is parking in front of there's a parking lot in front of the emergency room at the hospital?
I am aware. I'm fully aware.
Okay. And so did you avail yourself of the parking lot in front of the emergency room on that night?
So let me just be more precise, because I already stated that I didn't expect to stay there for more than 3 hours. So I don't see the relevance of your question.
Okay. You indicated that you went to the hospital and yet you parked on Stone Glen Crescent. Why was that?
Because it's across the street from the hospital.
Okay.
Emergency room.
It's across the street from the hospital?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Would you consider it a short walk? How long would it take to walk from Glen?
2-3 minutes,
2-3 minutes. Okay.
maybe less.
All right. And in your neighborhood where you reside, are you aware of the 3-hour prohibition?
Yes.
The maximum?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And when you went to the emergency room, did you consider, because you were parking on Stone Glen Crescent, did you consider that 3-hour maximum?
Yes, I did.
And what was you indicate that you weren't expecting to be at the emergency room for that long?
At the time, I didn't have a big problem. I'm not exactly sure, because once I've been there with kidney stones, and some other time I had a ear infection, is either one of these two things. I didn't expect to stay in the emergency room for more than 1-2 hours. However, for some reason, there was big waiting, and I could not attend to move my car.
Okay. Have you ever used the emergency parking lot when you've attended the hospital, or any parking lot assigned to the hospital?
One time I had to leave my car. I was in a lot of pain when I had to leave my car right in front of the emergency entrance. But that's not most of the time the case. It's just one time it happened that way. I don't consider the emergency room and the hospital parking, because the fees for that parking are very high, and I didn't want to park for because of my budget would not allow me to do that. This was an emergency situation which I didn't budget for.
It was an emergency situation, but you don't recall what the ailment was?
As I said, it could be one of these two things, but I'm not 100% sure which one was. Was one of a ear infection, or it was kidney stones?
But you were well enough to walk the duration that it would take to go from Stone Glen to the front entrance of the emergency room.
Yes.
Subject to any questions that the hearings officer may have, those are the questions I have for these, for the witness.
I don't have any questions. Thank you. I understand Mr. Cholak's position very clearly. Any further evidence, Mr. Cholak, or is that it?
No, that would be it.
Okay.
That would be all.
Do you wish to say anything Mr. Bowman, anything in summary?
Yes, just generally, the legal test is it more likely than not that the Audi motor vehicle was parked longer than 3 hours on Stone Glen Crescent? I think the officer's evidence was very succinct. The observations were complemented by photographic evidence indicating that there was chalk on the tires and the tires had not moved. In addition to that, we have an explanation from the defense that the car was situated there because he wanted to attend the emergency room at the hospital, and he didn't expect to be there for that long, but at the same time, based on a previous experience, he didn't want to pay for the hospital parking, which is precisely one of the reasons why, as the investigating officer denoted, why the town of Oakville Parking Enforcement proactively patrols that area for non-residents using those streets to augment or to use it for hospital parking. So the prosecution would ask that the penalty notice 21U00594 be confirmed and that the applicable penalty and fees be upheld.
Mr. Cholak, anything you wish to say in summary, or have you said it all?
I think I said it all, Mr. Hearing Officer.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any difficulty in this particular case. As Mr. Bowman, I think, has accurately pointed out, enforcement is a little more proactive in and around the hospital because the residents complain, I'm sure, to the city, and the city is aware that people are parking on the streets for extended periods of time when there's a parking lot available to them to use. And yeah, sometimes it's unfair that in neighborhoods like that, they get more attention than the neighborhood where you live, which is presumably more residential and not one which gets a lot of difficulty with parking. But when you're around a hospital, that's what's going to happen. And when you park a car, not knowing exactly how long you're going to be, it's a crapshoot. You may be out in 3 hours, maybe you won't be out in 3 hours. It's an imperfect world, isn't it? So the result is you took a chance, you chose not to park in the parking lot, and that was the day that Officer Lalonde was going by and was assigned to proactively look in that neighborhood. So I'm satisfied that the offense is made out. With respect to the penalty, Mr. Cholak, you've said you didn't budget for the parking. I don't know how much the parking would have been at the hospital. I will tell you honestly, I have never been to the new Oakville Hospital. I've been to the old one. I've been to the old one probably 30, 40 times over the last 20 years for work. And as I recall, it's pretty pricey. How much is the parking lot at Oakville Trafalgar Hospital?
If you're asking the prosecution, I'm unaware.
I'm asking anybody who knows.
It is not reasonable.
Of course it's not. It's a hospital.
It is a hospital, and yeah, as I said, I was considering other options than to pay for that unreasonable fee.
Yeah, well, you rolled the dice and lost.
It's true. I don't have any, but I'm upset because I'm a quite good citizen. I do everything right.
I have no doubt that you are, sir, but sometimes you roll the dice and it rolls up snake eyes or whatever it is. So I'm going to affirm the penalty at fee at $50, but I will mark it as 60 days to pay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You're free to leave now, of course.
The next matter I'm calling is listed on the docket as Mary Scacchetti, if I pronounce that correctly, but it's also listed as Toyota Canada Incorporated.
Well, I only have it as Sacchetti, however you want to pronounce it.
That individual has been promoted and should be joining shortly.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Chet. Ah, there you are.
There you are. I'll have to look this way. Okay, I think you can see me.
Yes,
We can see you, we can hear you.
Mary, how do we properly pronounce your last name?
Oh my goodness, that's a long lesson, Mr.
Okay.
Bowman. But the ethnic pronunciation is Sacchetti. Now the anglicized version is Sacchetti, and well, I've gotten a few other things in school during my lifetime, but
Then Sacchetti,
I respond to all of them. So no,
Sacchetti it will be.
We'll try for Sacchetti. Just so that we're on the same page, is it correct in that we're having a full hearing, or is there an admission to the facts with an explanation?
If the admission to the facts means that I'm admitting guilt from the standpoint of having read the parking sign and strongly believing I had not misunderstood it, then I would say, I guess what the correct way of saying would be that I would not be admitting facts. In other words, I'm used to City of Toronto pleadings for these kinds of things to say guilty or not guilty. So,
Well, how about if I step in, because I don't know anything other than what the charge is.
okay,
It says park where prohibited by sign. So that means it's alleged that you parked where it said no parking.
correct.
Okay. I think what Mr. Bowman is asking you, do you acknowledge you were parked where they said you were parked?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And the issue is whether or not it was properly signed, or whether that was whether the arrow was pointing at you or pointing the other direction or whatever.
Yes, I have I guess a position that I expressed earlier in our discussions with Mr. Bowman, and to explain what I had understood when I read the sign. But yes, I would say, Mr. Hearing Officer, that it's along those lines, I guess. What do you say?
Okay, so Mr. Bowman, acknowledge with Ms. Sacchetti acknowledging her car was parked, and it was her car parked where you say it was. Where do we go from there?
Just to clarify, then, I don't think we need the officer testimony then at this time, and this can simply be a paper review process.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes. I would simply for the purposes of clarification, since the hearings officer is not familiar with the setting, I draw everyone's attention to the items that were previously disclosed, which is the photographs taken by the investigating officer of the Toyota, as well as there is a printout from Google Street View that has, in addition to the officer's photograph, a view of the parking prohibition sign adjacent to St. Jude's Anglican Church.
Okay. Ms. Sacchetti, I'm looking at this Google Street View. There's a church, looks like a church to me, and a sign that says no parking except Sunday, 7 till 2. Okay. And the other images are your car, or a car, a picture of a car. I'm not even sure what car it is, so there you go.
That's our Toyota RAV4 hybrid.
Okay, you see that there's a picture in the foreground and a picture
It's
further back. I'm not sure which is the car in question.
the blue
So-
vehicle with the CRDJ plate.
Per
That's the problem.
per the photographic evidence and the penalty notice, it is the blue Toyota with Ontario marker CRDJ011.
Okay. Okay, and it's, okay, very good. So
Kenneth,
that's the evidence for the prosecution.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and you've acknowledged that's your car, Ms. Sacchetti. And
Yeah.
Okay, and you were parked out in front of this building, and there's a sign there. So go ahead.
Okay, so I will like to provide the following information in terms of that sign. As I
Okay,
said,
well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to swear or affirm. Which would you prefer?
what is the difference?
Swearing, put your hand up and says, I swear on the Bible. Affirming just simply says, I knocked myself out, didn't I?
No, you're still on.
Oh, okay. The screen disappeared for a moment. Affirming just says that you affirm to tell the truth without reference to God.
Sure, I can swear.
Okay. You put up your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence you give touching the matter in question will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so here we go. So the sign that I parked in front of, the format of the sign is such that the most prominent information on the sign is the no parking symbol, the red no parking symbol with the line through it. And the next most prominent information on the sign is the words except Sundays in capital letters. So my submission is, the general impression created by the prominence of the words except Sundays immediately following the more prominent no parking sign or no parking symbol is that parking is permitted on Sundays, and that the times listed on the bottom of the sign, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's unclear whether it relates to when parking is prohibited or to when parking is permitted. So of course, when I parked my vehicle, I read the sign, and prominently it said except Sundays. So I, in my mind, thought it was clearly on site, and I parked there. So of course, when I returned, to my shock, I had a $50 ticket, and I was, needless to say, I was very upset by it because I really I really thought I had not committed a parking violation. And so I explained earlier as well in discussions with Mr. Bowman, the sign, now that I have the ticket and I'm looking at the sign, and I thought, okay, well, obviously the sign is to different understanding. Namely, I took it to mean the way I took it to mean, which was I was okay to park there. But clearly, the parking officer obviously is saying that I committed a violation. So the fine for $50 for parking on that side street in front of the church, which at that time, there was no services. And so I just thought, this is really crazy that I have this $50 fine, and really and truly all I was doing in my mind was actually obeying the sign. So I really don't have anything more to offer than that. I came here today as I really strongly.
Okay, pause for a second. You're breaking up a lot.
Oh,
And I don't know whether it's your
it could
headset or,
Can you hear me better now?
no, you're breaking up a lot.
It could be the inside office signal here. We do have some problems here and there.
Okay, we'll do the best we can. We'll struggle along here.
Do you want me to repeat what I said?
No, I had it so far, but it was a little difficult to follow at times.
Do you want me
Okay.
to read it?
I think
Yes, please.
your
That's the
headset is
last-
better now.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want me to start from the top, or?
No, we got until about the last two sentences when it started to really crackle.
Well, the last two sentences were, essentially when I returned to my vehicle and I found that I had a ticket, not just a ticket, a very expensive ticket, a $50 ticket. I was really surprised having the ticket, because when I parked, I really sincerely believed that I was actually obeying the sign. And then to come back and find a ticket for $50, I thought that was, really, I was doubly upset by that as well. But that's basically why I'm here today. It's basically to indicate that the signage, to me, I thought it was pretty clear. It had no parking symbol except Sundays. And the timing below was, related in my view to the no parking restriction. But then the capital letters of except Sundays, which, jumps out at you on the sign, basically tells the reader that it's okay to park on Sundays, which is what I did. I don't have anything more to offer than that.
Okay, Mr. Bowman, did you have any possible questions arising?
Just have one, Ms. Skede.
If he's talking, I can't hear him.
Yeah, you're.
Yep. Just had one question. Just to clarify, so it's your understanding, the way you read the sign is that the no parking would be from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. when?
I think that the way I read the sign is that there's no parking except Sundays, and that the timing below on the third line, it's not clear to me whether that's the times that, now that I've gotten the ticket, whether those times meaning when you can park or when you can't park. So when I read the sign, I took it as carte blanche, obviously, because it said except Sundays. So I parked, believing that I was fully within the requirements of the sign. So that's, again, just to reiterate, that's my understanding.
And did you notice the church right next door?
I think when I parked, I didn't pay attention that it was a church. I think I paid attention that it was a nice structure, to be honest. Because I was just there to have that, leisurely afternoon by the lake, and I'll tell you, you and I didn't discuss this, but when I came back to my car, and there were people walking on the sidewalk, and there were people parked there, and I said, "Oh my God, I got a ticket." And they said, "You got a ticket." And, you know, people were equally surprised as, "Oh, but it's just except Sundays. Why didn't you get a ticket?" And I said, "I don't understand why I got a ticket, because that's how I took the sign." So clearly, you know, again, you know, and I know I'm not here to criticize, and I'm not here to point fingers. I'm just here to simply say that the sign does have an uncertainty about it. You know, in advertising, for example, you know, if you put words up in capital letters and you advertising laws, they put that they give those words prominence. They mean they have a strong meaning. You know, they want you to they want those words to jump out to the reader so that you pay attention to them, right? And so when I read the sign up, that's what I like. So
I think we're losing you again.
oh no, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, so no further questions, Mr. Hearings Officer, subject to any questions that you may have.
So what you're saying then is, if the words had said, well, it said no parking except Sunday between, the word between had been before the times, would you have read that as a complete sentence?
I think the fact that there's a no parking symbol and there were these words in capital, except Sunday, that negates the rest of the sign on Sundays. I have seen parking signs that will say, you know, parking permitted, and then it'll give you the days, it'll give you the time. I mean, sometimes you have those signs where there's seasonality, like you can park between, January 1st to March 31st on this side of the street, and then the rest of the year on the other side of the street. You know, like I've seen signs like that. But this sign had the capital words except Sundays. And to me, when I read it, I thought it was perfectly within the rules to park there because it was an emphasized except Sundays. So,
Okay.
as I say, I really fully believed I was in compliance with the sign, and to come back and to have a ticket and a $50 ticket, I was pretty put off.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Bowman, anything else you wish to say?
In terms of, are we on submissions?
I think we are, yes.
Okay. Well, the sign is in accordance with the Ontario regulation for signage. Just off the top of my head, there's other examples where the prevailing prohibition is no parking. And then as an example of another type of sign, there's EV parking only, or except for EV parking, which implies that it's an electronic vehicle parking, and anybody else, there's no parking. So the prevailing prohibition for King Street at this location is no parking. And there is an exception, and the exception is Sunday between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. I don't think, to be honest with you, I think the sign's pretty clear. I mean, if there's anecdotal evidence about people on the sidewalk commenting that they thought the same thing about the sign, anecdotal evidence just based on my experiences, I don't think I've had a ticket like this in a very long time where there's a simple misunderstanding of that particular sign. Again, the exception is for the parishioners of the adjacent St. Jude's Church. And it coincides with the service times and activities on the church on the Sunday, and that is the reason for the exception. Now, it is understandable that an individual might have a misunderstanding of the sign, and that's why we have resolution discussions. But in this particular case, we've gone now to the hearing, and I appreciate the admission of the facts. But at the same time, I think the penalty notice needs to be upheld, because otherwise it sets an unprecedented or a precedent regarding a sign that has gone through the review process with the traffic engineers and the regulation reviewers. And for that reason, the penalty notice should be upheld.
Ms. Sacchetti, anything you wish to comment? Or have you said everything you wanted to say?
Well, in response to Mr. Bowman's petition, the phrase that in her and what say, he can put it upper forward.
I can't hear some of the things that are being said.
Maybe if you just hold the microphone right up to your mouth.
The microphone is in the. It's in the
But you had a headset on before. I've been told sometimes just put that microphone right up, hold it right up to your mouth.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just saying, in response to Mr. Bowman's assertion to uphold the fine or the ticket, we did discuss before today. He had proposed a settlement, which I did not agree to take. But if it's the hearing officer's decision today to uphold the fine, then I would like to request that that same offer be put forth again for consideration in terms of the final fine to accept on this with my today.
Okay, well, first of all, I have no knowledge as to what the proposal was.
Okay, I can explain. I had a discussion with Mr. Bowman, and he had sent me an email, clarifying the position, and then he had proposed a $10 to settle that.
Well, here's the thing. You may remember when this hearing started right at the outset, and I read the sign. I had this perplexed look on my face going, does that mean you're allowed to park between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. or that's part of the no parking time on Sundays? Because I was perplexed by the sign at first. And as I said, when I asked you a question, I said, if the words had said, except Sunday between, it would be perfectly clear. No parking is the prohibition, exception Sundays between these two times. And I appreciate Mr. Bowman's comment that the signage meets the ministry's criteria. That doesn't make it clear as anything. It is kind of muddy. But having said that, I find that the offense has been made out, because when I look at it and think about it very clearly, it's implicit that the word between is what they mean. No parking except between these times on Sunday. And the fact that it's right outside of a church leads me to think that's probably why they put in the exception. And just so you know, 10 years from now, when the church has moved and found a new home and that land has been rebuilt as a condominium, that sign will still say the same thing. And it'll take another 10 years after that before they change it. But seriously, because you didn't want to accept the offer, I have to, and you put us through a hearing, the fine has to be $20, not 50. Okay? And I will give you 30 days to pay. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Bowman?
The remaining matter, Sheila Niles.
That individual has been promoted and should be joining shortly. Ms. Niles, you need to accept the offer to be promoted to panelist in order to participate and be on camera, please.
Ah, there you are.
Here I am.
Okay, Mr. Bowman?
Yes, Mr. Hearings Officer, it's my understanding that this will be a full hearing.
Okay. Is that correct, Ms. Niles?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, then let's go.
Mr. Hearings Officer, as previously disclosed, I'd ask that as Exhibit 1, the relevant sections of the parking bylaw be entered, and in addition to that, the relevant sections of the administrative penalty system bylaw 2015-071. I'd ask that they be.
That'll be Exhibit 2.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I would call to the witness stand Officer Matuszewski.
Okay. Thank you. Officer, would you please state your full name and spell your last name, please?
My full name is Sebastian Matuszewski, Matuszewski.
And do you wish to swear or affirm?
I can affirm.
Do you solemnly affirm that the answers you give to the questions asked will be the truth, the whole truth, and that oath is binding on your conscience?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, officer, by whom are you employed in what capacity?
I am a bylaw officer with the town of Oakville for 13 years now.
Okay, and were you involved in the investigation of the matters that is before this hearing?
I was.
And do you have notes regarding this investigation?
I do.
And how were your notes created and when?
They were created in my own writing, and there hasn't been any alterations.
Okay. Do you have an independent recollection of your investigation?
I do.
For what purpose do you bring your notes today?
Just for my recollection.
Okay. I'd ask that subject to any questions that the hearings officer or the defense may have, I'd ask that the officer be permitted to refer to his notes for the purposes of refreshing his recollection.
Ms. Niles, do you have any objection to the officer referring to his notes?
If I could be forthcoming, I do, given that the original notice was already in error. So, which the notice that was given to me, there was already corrections made. So it gives me I question the knowledge and the memory of the officer if he's constantly referring to his notes. Just the integrity of the notice was already amended, so I'm not sure why he would have to refer to his notes when it's, I'm assuming this is the correct information.
So, Mr. Hearings Officer, this is typical practice in terms of officers giving evidence.
Are you referring, Ms. Niles, to the time of the penalty notice, 15:15 being scratched out and 14:30 being put on?
I'm actually referring to the fact that I received the notice by mail. And it was surprising to me that I received the notice by mail because I wasn't even in a full stop. I wasn't parked there. I just received a notice and it was addressed to my husband because the car is registered to my husband. And I received a notice saying that I violated a stopping sign at 3:15 when I wasn't even at the location at 3:15. And then it was corrected to 2:30. I'm looking at the evidence that they provided in the notes, and it does align with the original that was scratched off. It says 15:30. So the notice that was mailed to me, along with this new evidence that the officer is claiming to review, there's discrepancies. So I'm having difficulty understanding why I have violated when it was never communicated. My first knowledge of this was in the mail, and it wasn't even addressed to me. It was addressed to my husband with incorrect information because I wasn't there. I tried to rectify this by speaking to somebody. It wasn't the officer I spoke
Okay,
to.
I was asking you about whether or not you object to.
I do, because I'm still sort of trying to understand what the violation is too. So maybe we could start off with what the violation is, because I'm not clear to the violation.
I believe that the violation is parked contrary to sign.
Okay, so I wasn't parked contrary to
Well,
sign.
you'll have a chance to explain that in a moment, okay?
That's fine. So if it helps,
I'm going to say that the officer is entitled to refer to his notes for the purposes of giving his evidence.
that's
So,
fine.
officer, please carry on. I've
Officer,
not heard any real objection.
keeping in mind that people are taking notes, if you could just pace yourself, please, in providing your explanation of your investigation.
Sure. So on September 16th, 2002, I was conducting a proactive school enforcement at roughly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 14:30 hours, I issued penalty notice 22N00705 to a license plate, to a vehicle bearing the license plate CFFA 472 with an Ontario marker. The violation was stop where prohibited by sign, contrary to Oakville bylaw 1984-1, Part 3, Section 5, Sub 9A, on Dorval Drive within the town of Oakville.
And officer, what, you mentioned that you were doing enforcement in that area. Why Dorval Drive? Why that area?
So we do proactive school enforcement, and we've had complaints about there's a no stopping zone on Dorval Drive right outside of St. Thomas Aquinas, and we've received multiple complaints. So regarding school zone enforcement, what happens is we travel in pairs of two. I was a passenger in a marked enforcement vehicle operating on Dorval Drive. The objective is to make observations and take photographic evidence of any infractions taking place. Once we take the photographic evidence, we then go back to the office, print the tickets. Once the tickets are printed, we amend the ticket time to when the actual infraction took place. So for this example, the ticket, I believe it was printed 15:30, but the actual infraction took place at 14:30.
Okay. And then what happens next in terms of your process?
So we print off the tickets, make the amendment, attach the photos to the ticket, is then sent to the administrative staff, who then process the ticket and send it in the mail to whoever the registered owner is of the vehicle.
Okay. And officer, during the course of your investigation or subsequently thereafter, were you able to confirm the registered owner of the vehicle?
Yes, the registered owner of the vehicle was a Brad Niles at 2328 Sutton Drive in Burlington, Ontario.
Okay. Mr. Hearings Officer, just because we're addressing it at this time, I'd ask that the plate inquiry showing Brad Niles as the registered owner of the Honda motor vehicle in question be tendered as Exhibit 3.
Thank you.
And officer, when it comes to school zone enforcement, why is the ticket mailed?
The ticket's mailed because we don't have time to actually issue it onto the car at the time.
And when you say you don't have time, what do you mean by that?
It's I'm a passenger in a vehicle, and we're driving up and down Dorval Drive, and just for efficiency, we don't have time to stop and issue the tickets.
Okay.
At that time.
And have you ever done school zone enforcement where you're not in a vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And are there any concerns in terms of that type of enforcement?
We don't, what happens is we don't actually get to issue the parking tickets or the infractions because the drivers, they drive off when they see us standing there, and they don't actually commit any offenses. So it's not conducive to a proper investigation.
Okay. And officer, during the course of your investigation, did you obtain photographic evidence?
I did.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the photos that were included in the disclosure and that are in the hearings officer package. Officer, do you have copies of the photos?
I have copies.
Okay. All right, officer, can you walk us through the photos, please?
So in total, I believe there's 5 photos. They begin with the door shut to the vehicle bearing the license plate CFFA 472. And there's 5 sequential photos taken of a young male getting into the car. And in front of the vehicle, there's a posted no stopping sign at the front bumper.
Okay, there's 2 signs there. Can you identify which one you're referring to?
There's a sign in front of the vehicle that says no stopping with a double-sided arrow.
Okay. And officer, are there any other signs that you're aware of along Dorville Drive with regards to no stopping?
There's no stopping signs all up Dorval Drive, south of, I believe it's Rebecca.
Okay, and there seems to be an entrance or a driveway access adjacent to the vehicle in question. Can you explain that?
That's a driveway that leads into St. Thomas Aquinas High School.
Okay. Mr. Hearings Officer, I'd ask that those photographs be collectively tendered as Exhibit 4, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yes.
And officer, what was your conclusion regarding that vehicle and the prohibition?
My conclusion was that the vehicle was stopped in a no stopping area on Dorval Drive.
Subject to any questions that the hearings officer may have or that Ms. Niles has, those are the questions I have for the officer.
Thank you. I will have a couple of questions, but Ms. Niles, this is your opportunity to ask questions of the officer.
Thank you, hearing officer, for giving me this opportunity. I was just brought to this attention with Exhibit 4 with the pictures. So looking at the pictures, it clearly says no parking and no stop. So I had no intentions of stopping there. I saw that.
Okay, now you're making statements, not asking.
Okay, so questions. Apologies. Thanks for stopping me. So my question here is that this appears, my son opening the door appears to be the first picture that was taken. Hence shows that I wasn't parked there for very long. I wasn't violating. I didn't stop. It wasn't that I was
Is there a
parked there waiting
question?
for my
Is there a
son.
question in
Fair
there, Ms.
question.
Yeah,
Niles,
so my
for the
question
officer?
is, okay, so my question is to the officer, from your recollection, how long was I parked at that stop?
You weren't parked, you were stopped. So I
How?
would say a total maybe of 30 seconds.
So 30 seconds, I was stopped. So that suffices $60 violation. I guess that's my next question. That's
That-
sufficient penalty? Is that because I'm just looking at this, Mr. Bowman, that you've shown me here as far as these notices of penalties and stuff, and I'm reading it, and it actually talks about, I don't know, like you sent me a number of newspaper articles, how
We're
there's
talking
children
about the original disclosure that was sent to you, not by me, but from someone from.
I
parking.
understand that, but I
So
feel
that's what
like
we're
this
talking
is-
about.
I feel that this is prejudice because you've sent me other articles that are claiming that it's a danger. What I did was endangering people. So I'm still sort of appalled here. So, okay, so you said 30 seconds, I stopped there, and that's a
Approximately.
violation of that stopping sign. Hence, it was appropriate for the town of Oakville to send me a ticket and mail it to me and give me a fee of $60. That's the process and that's the protocol of town of Oakville. That's my question.
That is how we do school zone enforcement, correct? We've had incidents where students have been injured and hit in the town. So we do it proactively to avoid situations like that. And there's no stopping signs for a reason.
Okay, so it's proactively, but it's clear that there's no children, that no one's in danger. I stopped there for 30 seconds, and that's your definition of proactively enforcing?
That you're still considered to be stopped, correct?
Okay. So now when I had, okay, here's another question. When I had asked to dispute this on October 12th, why was I not provided this information except for the fact that it was a $60 fee?
I
That's
can't speak to that. I can't speak to that. I don't do the
Oh.
administrative side. I just issue the tickets. I can't speak to
Okay,
that.
that's, thank you for, so I guess this is a question for, can I ask the lawyer a question or Mr. Bowman a question? Why this wasn't, because I contacted the town of Oakville.
No, you can't ask Mr. Bowman
No?
questions. No.
Okay, so can I ask you?
No, you can't ask me either.
Okay. So I don't know who to ask that question then. That's the reason why I'm in trial,
Well,
because nobody.
if we could just focus on the officer that's standing there, and if you have any more questions of the officer that's standing there, that would be helpful.
Okay, so officer, was I violating, did I do anything that endangered any children to your knowledge?
There is children leaving the school. It was school dismissal time, and there's several students, hundreds of students that leave the school. I can't speak to if you were directly, I can't speak to what would have happened, but there's a reason we enforce no stopping around school times to avoid situations like that.
Okay, and is it fair then that your comment earlier that the reason why you're no longer, or officers no longer walk in the premise because of the fact that people leave and they're not there long enough to get the ticket?
It's
Is
not that,
has that,
it's not that we don't always do it. We still enforce both ways, but there's certain schools where it's more beneficial and more, we get a better response from the public when we do a school zone enforcement through a vehicle.
okay, and then I guess, I don't know if this is confidential, but I guess it's safe to assume that the other two vehicles that were parked there longer than I was also received this ticket? Is that something that I could ask or no?
I don't think
No?
that's
Okay,
relevant.
well, I won't. That's why I'm asking for permission. I have no further questions.
Redirect, please.
I just had a couple of questions, officer.
Sure.
When I look at the pictures, I think I ask this question every time I see this. There is on the side of the road, where the car is parked, a solid white line running from the intersection back to the driveway, and then a broken line.
That is a,
What
that
is
is,
that?
that's
What
a
is
bike,
that lane?
that is a bike lane.
That's what I thought.
Go ahead.
So these two vehicles that I see in this picture were both stopped in a bike lane.
They were stopped in a bike lane as well as in a no stopping zone, correct?
What's the fine for stopping in a bike lane?
They are both the same, if I recollect correctly. Only one ticket was issued, not both.
So then the next question, and the last question is this. Where do people pick up their children?
Oh, there's extensive parking at St. Thomas Aquinas. If you, the issue that they have there is sometimes it takes some time to get it through the parking lot at dismissal time. So parents have tended to use the bike lane as a stopping area to pick up their kids to save time from entering the actual driveway of the school.
Thank you very much, officer. Okay, any more evidence, Mr. Bowman, or is that the?
Just one question and redirect.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Officer, when it comes to alternative forms of enforcement for no stopping, are there any concerns regarding the officer when issuing the ticket or attempting to serve the ticket on the windshield of the motor vehicle?
There's been instances where the drivers tend to drive off, and it puts the officers at risk, essentially, that want to serve that want to serve the vehicle with a ticket.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. McNeil, this is your Ms. McNeil. Who is that? Ms. Niles. This is your opportunity to give any evidence you may wish to give.
The evidence
As opposed
is,
to, yeah.
no, the evidence is I usually do park. I usually meet my son at Harvey's that's right on the lakeshore. I did see him coming, and since there was a car there and I knew I wasn't going to make a long stop, I read the sign. It says no parking. I had no intention to not park there. I had no intentions not to stop there. It was clear there was no students that I was putting at risk. I didn't acknowledge that there was a limit, 30 seconds, that I could be ticketed. Otherwise, I would have just went straight to Harvey's. Now I do, which is outside of the fact, but this took place at September 16th. So I was going through some, this is valid too in terms of the urgency of me picking up my son and going home. So instead of going to Harvey's, I did have an operation where I had to get a lump removed on October 5th. So it was quite urgent for me to get, like, since I saw him, instead of having to go back to Harvey's, waiting for him to go there, I just wanted to rush back home and take my medication, which again, like I said, in good faith. I wasn't compromising anything. I didn't see, like, there was cars parked there, so I didn't think it was that stringent that I didn't think I was violating anything. So the $60 penalty I thought was pretty severe. I did attempt to speak to somebody on October 12th. I called the town of Oakville. They were kind enough to set up a conference call for me on October 12th to